Hey everyone, welcome to Real Knowledge Club podcast. Today we have one of the most extraordinary, greatest prolific speakers, one of the most incredible entrepreneurs who have I have met online. Today's conversation is not just going to be about like business or like scaling companies. We'll be exploring about how to scale like love, intimacy, how to find a great life partner, how to retain it, and like some amazing hacks. Because what is the whole point of having a 7 or 8 figure business when you can't sustain like peace, passion, relationship, and partnerships? And today we have joined one of the most incredible entrepreneurs, Alex Charfen, who took a sabbatical to like basically study about like sex, intimacy, relationship, and everything. And today we will be diving deep into it so that like you all get like great nuggets and like learnings. And Alex is also the creator of the Billionaire Code, entrepreneurial personality type, and he has mentored thousands and thousands of people all over the world, right? Like from business, mastery, and everything. And today it's going to be like a masterclass on like relationships. Make sure that like you pay close attention. The part one is all about like understanding what is marriage, how it works. Part two is how to find a great partner, and part three is how to retain and like sustain them. Part four is all about like leadership, legacy, and wrap it down. Without any further delay, let us all welcome Alex Charfen to the Real Knowledge Club podcast. Welcome, Alex. Namaste. You are on mute, Alex.
Oh man, that's always. So thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it, man. That was intense. I
Thank you
hope
so
I
much.
can live up to
Yeah, absolutely. It was super amazing last year. I believe like we had the conversation and coming over here again, right? Thank you so much. And Alex, for all the people who are listening for the first time, tell us a bit backstory about yourself and what made you, after like building 7, 8 figure companies and everything, take a sabbatical and study about like relationships, intimacy, and all these things.
it. Oh man, that's a big question. So I think it was a combination of things, Akshay. For me, it was that I was really not no longer passionate about the business I was in. I had a business called Simple Operations. As you know, as a lot of people know, I've worked with some of the most successful people online and some of the very, very successful businesses out there. And it was a great company, but I just didn't want to do it anymore. I'm 52 years old. I'm at the point where my wife and I are, at the point where we really don't have to work. And a lot of people say that. They say, I don't have to work. I work because I want to. And I was in that place where I just didn't want to do it anymore. And we'd been talking about shutting down the business and doing something else for a few years. And last year around the March April timeframe, it just got to the point where it was like we were ready. I was ready. I didn't want to do what I was doing anymore, and so we let our team know. We shut down the business and we went on sabbatical. And the stated reason we went on sabbatical was to study sex, intimacy, and relationships. I have a extraordinary marriage with my wife Katie. We've been together for 22 years. We've been married for 20. She's like the most important thing in my world, the most important thing I've ever had in my life. She's the biggest transformational uh, effect or impact on my life I've ever had. And last year, when we were talking about closing down the business, there was also this awareness that like things in our relationship could be better. We'd worked on it a lot. My wife and I've been in therapy and counseling. We've done a lot of different things together. We've grown a lot together, but we knew there was more there. And so we went on sabbatical. And at the same time, we joined a Tantra mastermind. We joined another relationship mastermind. In the last year and a half, I've taken, I don't know, 15, 20 classes, maybe
Wow.
more on relationships. I've just been immersed in this. And it's been like the best experience of my life. I started working when I was really young. I was 8 years old, and I worked with my father. And like I started working, and I had, for most of my life I worked, and I was working to get away from poverty. I was working to get away from scarcity. I was working to get away from my childhood. And I got away from all those things, and then I just kept working for really no reason after that. And I was making an impact and I was helping people, but it got to the point where I really wanted to figure this stuff out. And it was excruciatingly difficult to shut down the business and to lose the identity of entrepreneur. But almost immediately, Katie and I started really digging in on our relationship, on sex, on intimacy. It brought up a lot of shadows, a lot of triggers, a lot of stuff that could be worked on. And the last year and a half has been the most fun I've ever had in my life by far. I mean, we're studying sex, intimacy, and relationships. It couldn't be more fun. And it's also been the most intense period of processing and understanding myself and working through triggers and working through challenges that I've ever had. And so it really has been like the most amazing thing I've ever done.
Wow, that's fantastic, amazing. Because I've seen very less people actually take so much amount of time to like read about like relationships, sex, and intimacy, like which you have done. I truly love that. And Alex, I've seen all over the world from India to like USA nowadays, like the divorce rate is like increasing. So many marriages are like breaking up and everything. What exactly is the purpose of like marriage, and when is the right time for one to actually get married?
Hmm. I'll answer the first question first. I think that when it comes to marriage, we have it all wrong. And we have a lot of misconceptions and misperceptions of what a relationship should be when we get married. And I think the impression that we're given by movies and by popular culture and by so much is that you find this person that completes you and everything's great and everything's awesome. And, the marriage makes your life better and it makes everything feel like, everything falls into place. And in some ways, that's true. But what I really think a marriage is, and what I really think a relationship is in this lifetime, especially for me, I'll share personally.
Sure.
What I discovered was my relationship with Katie, who is like this amazing, extraordinary human being, has been a catalyst for growth. And when I say catalyst for growth, here's what that means. Like if you're in a relationship with someone, you are going to get triggered. There's going to be challenges that come up. Here's what I really think happens in relationships. Every person has childhood trauma. We all have childhood wounding. We have father wounds. We have mother wounds. And, if you really want to just make it like universal for everyone, we all have the wound of not being seen, not being heard, not being validated, feeling abandoned, feeling alone. Like all of those things happen. And all of us have felt those things, and it causes reactivity. It causes frustration. And, a lot of that goes back to our childhood. I think for most of us, what we do is we repeat the energetic of our childhood until we process it and we learn a new way. And that is just so clear for me. So many people repeating the energetic of our childhood. If your childhood was chaotic and frustrating and fearful, we will repeat that environment, not because we want to, not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar to our nervous system. And so if you're in a relationship where there's chaos and challenges and frustration, like look at your childhood. Was there chaos, challenges, and frustration? If you're in a relationship where you don't feel seen, you don't feel heard, did you have those conditions in your childhood? And if so, then you have an opportunity to take the triggers and the challenges that come out of that relationship and go process them. Personally, I work with an EMDR therapist. I've also done plant medicines. I think, man, there's a lot of people who think like plant medicines and ceremonies are the way to do this. That's the way to understand and to get perspective on what you need to work on and integrate. And if you're willing to do those things and use the triggers in a relationship as the fuel for where you go work on yourself, everything in your life will change. And I think we really need to start looking at it that way, because so many of us have been given the impression that once we get into a relationship, everything's going to be great. And it will be. And it's actually an opportunity, but it's an opportunity to process and to pull closer and to communicate with each other and to understand what's really going on for you and become a much better human being.
Absolutely. We have to become a better version of ourselves first, and then like we have to go for like a marriage, right? So,
Agreed. I think that too many people want to get in a relationship and they think that they need to go work on a relationship. What you really need to do get in a relationship is work on yourself. And I can talk from the masculine perspective. Like, I believe that relationships provide us as men with this opportunity to step into a greater version of ourselves. See,
yes.
here's how I think it works in a male-female relationship. Therapists won't tell you this. I've been in a lot of therapy. They come from a different school of like everybody's equal and everybody's the same. And here's what I believe about men and women. We're equal, sure, but we're not the same. We are
Mm.
not the same. And this sameness, this like argument that men and women should be treated the same in a relationship, I think it's causing us a lot of challenges. Here's why. when you look at masculine and feminine energies and you look at men and women, there's something that men have to understand about women. Women inherently in this world do not feel safe.
Hmm.
And I don't mean that as a judgment. I mean that for us as men to have awareness that if, I ask men all the time, how many times have you been in the presence of a woman and you felt unsafe, like physically unsafe? And most men will chuckle and say, never.
Never.
And then I'll point out to them that, like, if a woman gets on an elevator with a man, she feels unsafe. Some part of her body feels unsafe, some part of her body's in a reaction because we are always more physically dominant. We are all not always. We, in most cases, are more physically dominant. In most cases, we have more strength. In most cases, there's a threat there. And I have not met a woman in my life who has not experienced some type of trauma or violence or objectification or abuse or something. And so there's always this inequity in relationships. When we try and make them equal, we erase the fact that as men, we have a responsibility to create emotional safety for the woman in our relationships first, because a woman cannot create emotional safety if she doesn't feel safe.
Hmm.
And so I think one of the biggest issues in relationships today is that men don't understand that our responsibility, first and foremost, is to create emotional safety. If we're in a relationship with somebody who's working with us, if we're in a relationship with somebody who wants the relationship, if we're in a relationship with somebody who's leaning in, then our goal should be to create emotional safety. And here's how you do that. You look at the relationship and you understand where the challenges are. And as a man, you go work with somebody to process that. You lower your trigger ability, you lower your reactivity, you process your trauma so that you can show up in a relationship and create emotional safety. And this will make you the man that you are meant to become. I know because I've lived it. And here's what I mean by this, Akshay.
Yeah.
This is kind of a big argument. I haven't talked about it a lot. So let me see if I can get it into words that make sense.
Sure.
But for us as men in a relationship, we have to learn that emotions are not something to run from.
Hmm.
We have to learn that emotions are not scary. We have to learn that emotions are actually beautiful. And if the woman in our lives is sharing her emotions with us, she's showing us vulnerability. She's sharing with us. She's open to us. And regardless of how it's coming out, regardless of what it feels like for us, we have to understand that sitting in the crucible of helping a woman process her emotions and staying regulated and getting to the point where we can be regulated and we can accept emotions as data, not as something to react to, everything in our relationship will change. Because here's what happens, Akshay, and here's what happens with most men.
Mhm.
We've been taught that emotions are unsafe. In
Yeah.
fact, all of us have heard something like, don't be a wuss, don't cry. Hang on, let me turn off notifications so we're not interrupted. We've all heard some version of don't be a wuss, don't cry, don't show your emotions, be a man, all of those things. And so we've accepted this dogma that emotions are dangerous. So if a woman that we're with starts getting emotional, we usually do one of four things. So the least challenging is we try and fix it. And so, we're in a relationship. I did this so many times to Katie, and I had no idea how bad and how challenging it was. My wife used to tell me all the time, she wished she felt seen and heard. And I would say, I see you, I hear you, I don't understand, I don't get it. It would be so frustrating. And here's why she didn't feel seen and heard. If she got emotional, the first thing I tried to do was fix it. As soon as I'm fixing it, I'm no longer hearing her. It's a project, just like anything else on my to-do list. And so she doesn't feel seen and heard. The second thing I would try and do is build some elaborate process around how we're never going to get into this emotional situation again. Again, I'm building process and structure. She does not feel seen and heard. The third thing I would do is withdraw. She would get emotional. I would feel attacked. Even if the emotions weren't about me, it would feel dangerous. So I'd withdraw and stay away from her until she stopped being emotional. And the fourth thing, unfortunately, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I would get mad. My wife would get emotional and I'd get angry. I wasn't emotional before she was emotional. She'd get emotional. I'd respond with anger. All four of those make it so a partner does not feel seen and does not feel heard. And all four of those demonstrate our emotional immaturity in relationships. I just
Mhm.
want to say that again. If you are fixing or building process or withdrawing or getting angry, you are demonstrating a level of emotional immaturity in the relationship.
Okay.
I didn't understand this because here's what emotional maturity looks like in a relationship. Your wife gets emotional, you regulate, you take a deep breath into your masculine core, you feel that strength that you have as a man, you gather your energy and you sit there in the crucible of her emotions and allow her to process, and you ask questions and you have her tell you what's going on. And like, here's what it would look like prior to me understanding this. Katie would get emotional, I'd start trying to fix it, I'd be inventorying everything she said, there'd be 30 things that I felt like I had to go do, I'd go start doing things, she wouldn't feel seen and heard.
Mhm.
I remember the first time that I was able to do this. Katie got emotional. I was prepared for it. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to sit in this crucible. I'm going to help her process. This is like my opportunity as a man. And I sat there and there was some stuff going on with my daughters. Like, we've got some transition going on. One of my daughters is moving out of the house. One of them was going into her junior year. There was a lot of like emotions for her, especially with those types of transitions. And I sat there and I listened and I asked open questions like, is there anything else that is coming up for you? And man, that feels really hard. Is there any other feelings that are coming up? And I just let her process. And Akshay, it probably took like 30 or 45 minutes.
Um,
And I let her keep talking. And then I asked some really crucial questions towards the end. I said, is there anything else coming up for you? And then there was a little bit more. And then I said, is there anything else? And she said, no. And then I asked this question that blew me away. I said, so how are you feeling? She said, I feel so much better. I feel so much calmer. I'm a little tired. And I said, okay, Katie, well, a lot of stuff has come up in this conversation. What, if anything, do we need to take care of moving forward? And you know what she said? Nothing, nothing, nothing. She felt seen. She felt heard. She processed. I sat there with her. I stayed with her. And in the past, I would have gone off and tried to fix 25 things. And now it was just a matter of being there with her, being in that space with her, helping her process. And that, I remember the first time it happened. It's like this feeling for me of stepping into my masculinity, of stepping into actually being able to hold space, of stepping into being able to create a masculine container for a conversation where it's contained and processed and held, and then we moved forward. And as a man, if you're willing to take on that challenge, you will change not just your relationship, you will change every relationship you have, including, which is most important, the relationship you have with yourself.
absolutely.
Because when I went from reactivity and anger and frustration and really kind of like chaotic feelings of out of control, that is not an empowered state. That's a victim state. That's a frustrated state. That's like I was in victim.
Mhm.
I was in a victim like mode. It was happening to me. And when I switched it to this is happening for me and I can grow into this and I can hold this space and I can hold this container, I felt the strength and the capacity that I have as a human being in a totally different way.
Absolutely. Love that. It's all about giving the woman the safety space and like listening to what's going on, the problem and everything, and then coming up with solution instead of being like more reactive to whatever they tell, creating a system or like trying to not listen to them, right? Love that. And
Yeah.
when it comes down to marriage, right? When is the best time? Because many business owners are like in the hustle mode. They want to become millionaire. They want to do some savings. Then they have this plan, and then they are also becoming older as well, right? When is the right time to get married?
Gosh, that's a really tough question. I don't know how to answer for everybody like what the right time to get married is.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think like we all kind of feel it differently. So for me, it's interesting, Akshay. When I look at my history and when I met Katie, I had gone through, before meeting her, I'd gone through a really challenging breakup. And I'd done some personal work. I started EMDR therapy, and I was dating a little bit after that breakup. And then it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I really need some space. I need some time for myself. I need to focus on myself. So I went on sabbatical from dating. It's not my first sabbatical right now.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
when I met and I was actually working with a therapist, and the therapist, I told the therapist I don't want to date. I don't feel like I need to keep doing this. I need some space, I need some time. And he was like, "Okay, but why don't we go ahead and do an exercise to see if we can like understand what you want so you know if it comes around." And I did this exercise with a therapist where we came up with a list of 10 things that I wanted in a relationship. Not like an attractive partner or Instagram followers or any of the weird stuff that comes up these days,
Yeah.
but it was things like I want someone who's willing to live outside the lines because I'm not like everybody else. I'm not a 9 to 5 guy. I want someone who's adventurous. I want somebody who looks at the world differently. I want somebody who really supports me. I want someone who leans into the relationship. I want someone who's willing to grow. I keep hearing that the number one quality that men look for is loyalty. And I think loyalty is so important. But man, loyalty without growth means that you're just going to have somebody who hangs on for dear life because you're an entrepreneur. And so I really wanted someone who would grow. And so when I met Katie, I hadn't dated in like 8 or 9 months. And we had a chance like meeting at a restaurant in Tampa. I lived in South Florida. She lived in Texas. We both happened to be there. But when I met her, because I'd done the work before, I knew she was exactly what I wanted. And so for me, because I was in that place where she showed up at the right time, it was like all in. I mean, I knew the night I met her, I called my mom and told her I met the woman who I'm going to marry. And it was for me like the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it continues to be the catalyst to make me like the best version of myself that I can be.
Absolutely, absolutely amazing. Asking the right questions is one of the most important things, and like every problem we go through, right, like it makes us better. And once we are able to understand each other, that is the right time to get married. Love that. And Alex, what are the most important questions, like as you told, like to-do list or like questions before we get married? Because it's too much difficult to judge someone by just seeing the Instagram post or the car post or like all these things, right? How do we know that is this person? Because we can change the business coach, we can change the phone, we can change the laptop, everything, but we cannot change like a life partner, right? Because it's like from the time we get married to until like we die, we just have one partner. How to make sure that we take ultimate the best decision in life?
I think that's something that you feel in your body, Akshay. I think that as entrepreneurs, we try to apply logic to everything, you know? And I think in relationships, we try and apply logic. And I think there is deep wisdom in our bodies,
Hmm.
deep, deep wisdom in our bodies. And I teach this to my daughters, where if you slow down and you take some deep breaths and you ask a question to your body, like, is this the right person to me? It's going to tell you. And I
Hmm.
think that as entrepreneurs, we try and stay up here in all of the logic mind and process and structure and all the other things. And we don't really drop in and say, what's my body telling me? And over the course of the past year and a half being on sabbatical, and prior to that, I do things like Qigong and meditation and a lot of embodiment practices and breath work and microcosmic orbits and all kinds of other stuff that like get me in my body and keep me there. And so these days, when somebody asks me a question, I feel the yes or no in my body before I answer. And I think if you're looking at relationships and you're trying to, and is this the right one? It's like, take some time, take some space to yourself, get quiet, do some breath work, breathe until you really feel your whole body, breathe until you feel your feet, then breathe until you feel your knees, and breathe until you feel your whole body. And then sit with it and say, is this the right decision for me? And you will get an answer. I think logicking certain decisions in our life is super challenging. And I think logic works. Like you might make more money, you might do the thing, you might have some success. But the more you feel into the wisdom of your body, the more you trust your body. People say trust your gut. I say trust your body. Like feel it, you'll feel it in your gut. You'll feel it all over if you have the right decision. When it came time to close the business, my body was telling me 100% it had to close. That I had to stop doing what I was doing. I felt pain. I felt frustration. We had an event that I had to speak at, and I like literally had trouble speaking at the event. So all the signs were there that we had to do something different. I think that as entrepreneurs, oftentimes we run so hard and we run so fast that we run right past intuition and inspiration that is guiding us to the life that we really want.
Absolutely, absolutely love that. Like listening to our gut intuition is one of the most important, listening to our inner vibrations. Love that.
Yeah.
And Alec, one of the things when I was just reading the statistics about like happiness, even like the most of the entrepreneurs also have faced like diverse, right? Including like Bill Gates and like some incredible top billionaire entrepreneurs as well. And as you have clear, very closely coached even like billionaires as well. Now, even in USA to like in India, like the diverse rate is like increasing. What is the major cause, right, in the world? Why does it diverse happen in like relationship in a marriage? How to avoid it?
How to avoid divorce? Um, I'll speak from the masculine perspective. Um, Everything you want is on the other side of your wife feeling safe, seen, and heard. Everything you want, I'm going to say it again. Everything you want is on the other side of your wife feeling safe, seen, and heard. And here's what I mean by that. Man, I can speak about this from a total embodied state because my wife has had the same issues every other woman has had. There's been, objectification and abuse and challenges in her background and all kinds of stuff that has made her feel unsafe in the world. And when I say unsafe, like I don't want to project on all women that they're walking around just terrified all the time. They're probably not. But I can tell you compared to men, there's a lot more fear there than we ever feel. And so I think that part of the reason that the divorce rate is so high is that we see relationships as a cure, not as a crucible. And the crucible is that you lean into that relationship and you take the information out of it and you work on it and you process it, and then you will change yourself and you'll change who you are. And so as a man, everything you want is on the other side of your wife feeling safe, seen, and heard. And here's what I mean by that. When Katie felt safe, seen, and heard, my level of confidence went through the roof because I'm the one who sat there and helped her process and was able to like sit through that and do that with her. And I do it over and over again. And the more safe and the more seen and the more heard she's felt in our relationship, the more there's affection and spontaneity and intimacy and connection in a way that I didn't even really know was possible. I went from being one of those guys like in so many relationships where I was like, we don't have enough intimacy. We don't have enough sex. I think that's really the issue. We need to do more. And these days, Katie jokes around that I don't initiate enough because we have this relationship where it's open, she's safe, she's seen, she's heard. And, there's this myth in the market that there's some women that don't like sex. What I've come to learn in the research that I've done is that every woman loves sex. They just don't like the sex that they're getting or the intimacy that they're getting. And when they feel safe, seen, and heard, intimacy will change in a way that will change who you are. But as men, like we have to come first. And one of the most important parts of having a relationship is that as a man, you create a container for that relationship. And here's what I mean by container. This is an energetic container. And by container, I mean, we use our energy to contain the energy in relationship. And here's what that means for you as a man, that your sexual energy stays in the relationship. Now, I'll tell you very honestly, for most of my relationship, this was not the case with me. And it's not like my favorite topic to talk about, but it's real that, I was married to Katie and I was still using pornography and objectifying women and leaking sexual energy all over the place. And she felt that in her nervous system because I know she did, because when I changed, when I closed the container of our relationship, when I stopped looking at anything stimulating sexually, when I focused my sexual energy inside our relationship, when I kept it contained in the relationship, everything changed in her reaction to me. But here's what's even more important and so amazing is that the more I focused on our relationship, the more Katie became like the most attractive and exciting thing in my world. And
Wow.
when I stopped all the objectification and all the outside input, the level of attraction and the level of passion and the level of ecstasy that I feel with Katie is different than anything I've ever had in my life. Because we went from having unconnected, dysregulated intimacy where neither of us were really connected or there. And that's why I always felt like I needed more because it wasn't satisfying. It wasn't connected. It wasn't real. To having the deepest, most connected, most passionate sex and intimacy that changes everything. Like it's so satisfying that again, sometimes my wife tells me I don't initiate enough. But it came from me first. Like I took the initiative to close the container, to hold that masculine container, to hold the sexual energy in our relationship. And that changed everything. Like it's often odd as entrepreneurs, we want to be able to say, I changed this ad and I made more money, or I changed this landing page and I made more money, or I did this thing and it had this effect. But oftentimes in life, it's not like that. Oftentimes in life, you like go to therapy over here because you have childhood issues, and all of a sudden your business gets better. Or you work on your relationship and suddenly you're losing weight and inflammation goes out of your body. And so that's very similar in relationships. Like the more you close the container and hold that energy and create the space and containment for your relationship, the stronger that it will be. And I think that men are told all types of garbage in today's market, and so are women. Oh, if your husband uses porn every once in a while, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Really? That's leaking sexual energy in a form of infidelity. In my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm fine. Anybody can argue with me, but it's a form of infidelity. You are letting your sexual energy leak in another place, not with the person that you're with. And if you're willing to stop it and cut out the outside world sexually and focus the energy sexually, it will change everything for you. My wife is the most exciting thing in my world. Sometimes she just walks through the room and I'm like totally activated and excited. And it wasn't like that before. It was in some ways, but it wasn't with the same intensity that there is now. But I did that. I changed how I behaved outside of the relationship, and it changed everything inside the relationship. And I think one of the biggest issues with divorce is that we've made everybody equal, and men aren't told like, hey, your responsibility is to hold the container of this relationship. And it doesn't just mean not leaking sexual energy. It also means like, if you're an entrepreneur, especially, you can show me the process in your business. You can show me the process, the structure, the routine you have in your business. Where is that in your marriage? 99% of the people I talk to have no process, no structure in their marriage. The Gottman Institute, John Gottman and his wife, did a survey with 40,000 couples over time to see what were the indicators of people not getting divorced and staying together. And the number one most important thing is the couples who had some process to connect on a daily basis. Out of 40,000 couples, the number one indicator of not getting divorced is the process to connect on a daily basis. So you can show me all the process in your business, but let's create some structure in your relationship. And as a man, you should create that structure. Here's a warning. If you're a woman watching this, show it to your husband, because if you try and create the structure, it can work, but man, is it difficult, because structure, process, and routine is a masculine energy. And if a woman creates the masculine structure for a man to step into, that can create an opposition to polarity. It can actually like really challenge the relationship. And in so many relationships, the man is the visionary, off doing visionary things, which by the way, visionary, creation, like all those things, that's very feminine energy. And the woman is keeping the calendar and keeping the structure and keeping the process and keeping routine. And so the man's in feminine energy and the woman's in masculine energy, and they don't understand why it's not working. Mm-hmm. As the man, the way you counter this is you create a structure for the relationship. So every single day, Katie and I do a morning like alignment where we go through what's the most important thing for the day, what's something you're grateful for, we each say 3 words that we want to infuse the day with. It's just 10 minutes. It's the moment of connection. It's like very important to us in the mornings. And then every evening we get together in like a kind of semi-formal sit down, just discuss what happened during the day. So there's a connection point in the morning and a connection point in the afternoon. And both of those make our marriage so much stronger. When I compare that to the processes I used to have in my business where I was having meetings and huddles and this and everything else, it's pretty simple. Doesn't take a lot. But if you put some structure in the relationship, you will see a massive shift.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love that. It's like journaling, right? Being transparent with each other, writing down how was the day spent, like some compliment, and at the end of the day, what happened, and like talking to each other on a day-to-day basis will definitely make the companionship much stronger and better, because most
Yeah,
of
but there's a warning. There's a warning about that. I want to just make sure that we like point something out.
sure.
Actually, I talk to people all the time who are in a relationship and they work together and maybe they work out of the house and they're like, Alex, we're together all the time. You don't understand. We don't need that. We're together all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, you're together all the time, but how often during the week do you have time and space where you have intentional time and attention without any other distractions, just on the relationship. And then they're like, oh, well, we're together all the time. We talk all the time, but we don't do that. And
Hmm.
so that same way, like you have to separate out that time where it's intentional. Intimacy is created, it's intimacy is created by intentional time and attention. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about intimacy, the feeling of intimacy, the feeling of connection, the feeling of like being with that person is created by intentional time and attention. If you don't have that, you will not have intimacy. And if you don't have intimacy and you try and move to sex, it's going to be very, very challenging. I think that's why a lot of relationships fail is because there's a lack of intimacy, but there's sex. And what I want the men to hear is to hear something I hear from women, some composite of they feel physically and financially taken care of, but emotionally starved. And
Hmm.
it's because we're doing one of those four things. We're fixing it, we're turning it into a process, we're withdrawing, we're getting angry, we're not just sitting in space and actually helping them process, sitting in the crucible of that conversation and regulating and staying present and processing in the moment. That changes everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love that. And Alex, for all the people now you told like what actually can lead to like diverse and like what makes a great marriage, right? Now imagine all the Gen Z, the young entrepreneurs who is actually looking to get married, right? Who is ambitious, visionary, who is looking for a great integrator. How they have to go about in terms of like finding a life partner? Should they first write down all the dream like a law of manifestation, law of attraction, and like then they have to go about like searching them? And what are the red flags they have to completely avoid when like searching an woman of their dream?
Hmm. I mean, I think going through a process, I think there's a lot of people who want to be in a relationship, but they don't know what they want. And they have an impression of what they want, but they're not really clear on it. And what I've done with a lot of people, like I've never coached relationships. I've never like specifically done this work, but we've worked with a lot of people, and we've shown them that process I went through of getting still and getting quiet and writing down the 10 things that are most important to you. And I've actually done this personally with friends of mine where they're really having a challenge and they can't find the relationship they want. I just did it recently with a friend of mine who I saw at Stephen and Marley's wedding, and she and I got on a call afterwards and we went through it and I talked to her like, what are the 10 things that you want? I started making notes and we came up with a list. And Akshay, I think it was maybe 6 weeks later that she's like, holy shit, this worked. And I'm
Wow.
like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, it's so weird because there's this guy I've known forever and he's been in my life forever. But then he like reached out and I was looking at the list that morning and then I realized he really had a lot of those things and he wanted to go out and we went out and like now we're dating. And the number of times that that's happened where you get really clear on what you want and then it shows up is kind of magical. But I think so many people are like wanting a relationship and they dream about it, they think about it, they haven't gotten really clear on like what do they want? What does that person look like? What are the characteristics that person has? And when you put them together, you know, in my experience, I can't think of anybody who's gone through that list of 10 exercise and didn't have success.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have to write down everything and like then we have to also look into the woman's goal and dreams, and if both are matching, then that's the absolutely like going to be a great marriage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think I think one of the things that challenges relationships is that we try and find the finished relationship state up front.
Hmm.
And I think that's near impossible. Like what I think we should be looking for is someone that has the characteristics that we want, someone who's willing to grow, someone who's willing to work with us, someone who's willing to expand with us to because I've been married for 22 years. I'm not the same person that I was 22 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 12 months ago. Neither is my wife. And I think one of the consistent things that has made it so that we've been able to stay together is that we're both willing to grow. We're both willing to look at ourselves. We're both willing to do the work. And I think in a lot of relationships, maybe we look for loyalty, but like that work and doing the work and willing to grow isn't there, and that's going to be challenging if you're an entrepreneur. I think I don't know that there's like a lot of quote unquote red flags that I have, but I think if there's someone who does not want to grow, there's someone who doesn't want to develop, if there's someone who doesn't want to like expand their lives and become a better person, if you're an entrepreneur, that's going to be a really tough match for you because you're going to be constantly growing and you need someone who's willing to grow and develop with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like growth, because stagnation is like dying, right? Like both has to keep growing and like both has to put or push each other to go to like next level. Hmm.
Well, I think there's more than that for men. Just, and I'll speak from a male perspective. Again, I really want to speak about like what I know personally. I think for so many men, actually, I had this conversation with a friend of mine a while ago. For so many men, like when I bring up closing the container and no longer objectifying and not using pornography and like really focusing on the relationship, what I often hear back, and actually, like a good friend of mine actually told me this back. He's like, when that comes up, I have these really challenging feelings. I feel like it's my birthright to be able to go look at whatever I want to. And I feel like I should be able to experience whatever I want to. And I want to be able to go out and look and like think, and there's nothing wrong with that. And what I told him back was like, hey man, I think that's your conditioning. I think we have patriarchal masculine conditioning that says we're in charge. We can do whatever we want. We can go look at whatever we want. And that's okay. But here's what I really believe is that the biggest opportunity we have in this lifetime is to go all in with the woman that we love and to shut out all of the noise and to create massive focus on that relationship. Like that is our birthright. And when we focus on that relationship, when we put energy and time and attention into that relationship, and it's reciprocated, when we're with somebody who's willing to grow, when we're with somebody who sees us doing that work, when we're with somebody who's willing to give us transparent, real feedback, that becomes the catalyst for us to grow. And that focus of focusing your energy on your partner and focusing your energy on the relationship and taking the triggers and processing them, that will help you grow in a way that I haven't experienced anything else that has allowed me to grow in the way that I have today. And today when I show up and I'm in a room or I'm with other people, not only do I feel differently, do I see the world differently, the world reacts to me differently.
Yeah,
People react to me differently. I think there's this concept of having fuck you money, like you've got so much money, nothing matters. Like I've been there and I know what that feels like. Like I'm on sabbatical, I'm not working, I'm not worried about money at all. But I also feel like I kind of have a fuck you relationship because my bond with Katie is so tight and I feel so secure and so confident in our relationship that security, that confidence walks into every single room with me. And it's changed how I look at the world. And so as a man, your opportunity is to use that focus and that intensity and that energy in your relationship. If you create that there, you'll create that focus, that intention, that intuition, that inspiration everywhere else in your life.
absolutely, absolutely. Like we have to do our due diligence and like we always have to listen and like being humble enough, right? Having that humility, and that's one of the most important things. Love that.
No
And
question.
yeah, Alex, well, you always talked about like emotions, right? Like women have like more emotions than men, right? Like sometimes, because there are like lot of things which goes in a woman's mind, body, and everything. Well, how does a man like when they are facing a problem or like something? Because relationship is not going to be like a straight line. It's going to be like a roller coaster ride, right? Some days like they win, sometimes we win. There'll be like an argument. I want to do this, the husband wants to do this. Now, how should one, as an husband, go about trying to solve that problem, right? Without having a fight or something.
What specific problem, Akshay?
Like example, the wife wants something and the husband wants something. Like example, the wife wants to go from, like example, Austin to like Australia, right? The husband wants to go from Austin to like Switzerland. Both are like, let's go here. The wife tells, the husband tells, let's go here. How to come to one point and one conclusion?
I think it's just communication in the relationship. I think that if you have a disparity of decision making, then you sit down and you talk through it and you spend the time that you need face to face to talk through it. But I think the challenge for most of us is if there's a difference in decision making and there's a conflict in decision making, we immediately see it as an opposition and something that we're going to win or lose. And I think it's really one of the big challenges in relationships for us as entrepreneurs is we treat them transactionally. I did this thing for you, so then you should do this thing for me, and we're always keeping score. It's like one of the most damaging things you can do. By the way, I had therapists tell me so many times I needed to stop keeping score. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I kept keeping score, and it was like the worst thing I did. And so, and if you're in a relationship and there's a disparity of decisions, you talk through it. You come to consensus. You spend the time together. And if it's like that big, one person wants to go one part of the world, person wants to go to another part of the world, you take the time to actually have the conversations until you both understand your perspectives,
Hmm.
and then you make a decision together. But you know, what I hope you weren't looking for is like you keep talking about it and then the man makes the decision, because that's like a lot of the belief system out there is like man leaves the family, you're going to make the decisions, you're the only one.
Man dominates the family, right? Compared to women, usually that's how the world is built, right? Like
Kind
politics,
of, kind of, but you know what? There's this like complete bullshit dogma out there, and I'll share it with you because it came up this week and I got really kind of challenged by it. There's this dogma out there, some of it's religious, some of it's cultural, that in a relationship there's God, then the man, then the woman, then everything else.
yeah,
And like what that implies is that if you're in a relationship with a woman, that you come first and then she should do everything that she can for you and you should be the most important person in her life. Now, I fully believe that, but I don't believe in the dogma. Because if you're enforcing that you're the most important person in a woman's life, you probably aren't. It's like when we were kids and your mom wanted you to be friends with somebody, you're not going to be friends with that person, right? You can't enforce that you're the most important person.
yeah.
What I think we should be doing as men is looking at that dogma of like God, me, my wife, and earn that position, become the most important person in her life, be the person who's helped her process her feelings and who creates safety and who creates an emotional container for her and who makes her feel received and welcomed and like lets her express. If you let your wife express her emotions, she will express her sexuality. If you let your wife express what's going on for her, you will receive so much as a man back in adoration and devotion and energy back from her. And so, it's like for us to really look at this as like the biggest opportunity that we have as men.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love that. And Alex, after like marriage, as an husband, as a man, should we love more like the future wife or like the mother? Because if you see, especially in India, many people they get married and after they get married, they give less importance to the mother, right? Because they both stay in the same house, mother and like wife. How to balance both of them?
Like the relationship you have with your mom and your wife.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm so glad that's not cultural here in the United States because that's a tough one. Honestly, I think if you're in a situation where your mom and wife are both in proximity to each other, you need to be in therapy, like big time. Because here's what I can tell you: if you're a man, you have a mother wound.
Hmm.
You have wounding around being seen and being heard. You probably have a father wound too. You like, I feel like all of us have it. None of us had a perfect childhood. We all felt unseen, unheard. We all felt in jeopardy. We all felt abandoned. We all felt like we weren't recognized or weren't accepted. And if you're in a place where your wife and your mom are in the same place, I think like having an EMDR therapist that you're working through what comes up so that you're not reactive will change that situation. Here's the biggest issue. If you're in a trigger rich environment, you will get triggered. The less triggerable you are, the more perspective you have, the more you can navigate rationally, the more you can show up calm and present and aware. And so, in any situation, even the really difficult one you've spelled out, the calmest person in the room wins. The most present person in the room wins. The most embodied person in the room wins. And I think, again, we don't think like, this issue that I'm having here with conflict, I need to go over here and handle the triggers and the challenges and the reactivity that I have. We just want to stay on this conflict. But I think going and using it as the fuel to process what's come up for you, to understand what's come up for you, to get that out of your body, that will help you in every situation in life, not just your relationship.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love that. And Alex, when it comes down to having just one partner in life, right? Nowadays, men are having affairs, and even women are also having affairs, right? It's becoming very common in these days. How to make sure that like we are loyal and like trustworthy to just one partner, because everyone is trying to seek happiness somewhere outside when we have already married inside, when there is a great wife, great husband. Why don't they just focus on that to make it even more better?
Well, I think for men, a lot of it's cultural, a lot of it's like not understanding the opportunity they have in the relationship. And so they think that they need to go have a different relationship to get what they want. And that is like just sends everything sideways. I think um, trusting that if you put the time and energy into the relationship and you stay there, that that's where you're going to get the most out of it is really what's most important. I think, again, so many of us as men, we want this relationship that gives us everything we want without work. And here's what I know about entrepreneurs. If it's easy, you don't want to do it anyway. And so stop asking that your relationship is easy and instead ask, what can you do? What can you take from the relationship to make you a better person? And that doesn't mean, oh, this person is like adores me and loves me, and that's what I'm going to take from this relationship. What I'm saying is, look at the shadows that are coming up. Look at the challenges, the reactivity, the triggers. Go handle those challenges, those reactivities, those triggers, and stay in the relationship. It's a crucible that's going to give you everything you want. And as a man, you know, we might think what we want is just to go have sex with somebody. We might think what we want is just go have sexual stimulation. We might think what we want is an affair. We might think what we want is somebody else. But what I think we really want is we want to be present and aware and focused and be as strong as we can be and hold as much energetic capacity as we can. And the way that I've gotten there, the way that it's worked for me is the more energetic capacity I have in my relationship, the more energetic capacity I have everywhere else. And so, I already shared with you, for a lot of my relationship, I used porn. It was a soothing mechanism. It was something that I was introduced to way too young. It was there my whole life. I thought it was going to be in my life forever. I finally got it out, stopped using it, set it aside. And Akshay, these days, not only am I not interested in pornography at all because of the energetic that I've created in my relationship and the attraction that I have to Katie, I don't want anything messing with that. I don't want anything to stand between us. Here's what I can tell you about my relationship. We've spent enough time together now processing and talking and understanding that Katie knows everything about me. I have zero secrets, not one secret. My entire history. At one point while we were on sabbatical, Katie was like, hey, listen, you don't have to tell me every little detail, but you can if you want. And I was like, I just want to get it all done. I want it all out. I don't want any secrets. So for me to even consider using pornography, not even a chance. In fact, when stimulating stuff comes up on Instagram or Facebook, I'm like, do not show me this shit anymore, because I want all of my energy to stay in my relationship because it is the most important thing in my life. And it's where I get the most satisfaction, the most recognition, the most adoration. Like as men, like here's what men really want. We want to be worshiped and adored, and we want devotion, and we want somebody who loves every single part of us, but we're not willing to show it all to them. And then we go to somewhere else to get attention from someone else. That
Absolutely.
is a sign of massive emotional immaturity. As a man, step into the relationship and stay there. Process the triggers that come up. Support her in her processing, and you will get everything in life you've ever wanted.
Absolutely. Being honest, being loyal, and being truthful to a partner, sharing the secrets, listening, and that's what will grow the relationship to the next level. And Alex, you being a business coach, right? There was a quote which I was reading.
Former business coach.
Yeah, former business coach. Yeah, people tell there is no business problems. It is the other problems which reflects in business. How important it is to fix this relationship for all the entrepreneurs who are watching this, right? Before the problems become more bigger. Because some people are telling, I'm not hitting the money, I'm not making the dream, everything, right? When they are having this relationships chaos.
Here's what I can tell you from experience. I coached entrepreneurs online from like 2013 to 2025, something like that. And prior to that, we had an education business where we also did some coaching. And here's this counterintuitive thing that happened over and over again. Because we had a coaching company where we were coaching entrepreneurs, we worked with a lot of couples. And after a few years, Katie and I put together some of the materials on what we did as a couple. Like, this is how we create process, this is how we create structure, this is how we relate to each other. And so we started teaching people that. And there was this very clear connection to, if someone came into our program and they were in a relationship and we had the husband and wife in the program and they started working on the relationship, the business grew. And it was so counterintuitive. I had more than one couple come to me and say, like, Alex, we're communicating better, we're doing this, and it's so crazy. Everything in the business is easier. Of course it is. Because when you're in a positive state, like when you're in a positive outcome, when you feel connected, when you feel secure, everything in the world looks easier. Problems don't look like problems, they look like situations. And as entrepreneurs, we know how to handle situations. And so the more, it's counterintuitive, but the more you put into that relationship and create stability and create connection, the faster your world will grow and the faster your business will grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love that. It's bringing together. If they go to an event together, if they read together, if they do it, it's going to be more powerful, right? And that's how, because inner happiness, because our life, our partner is going to be the closest person, the emotional energy, right? That's what I truly believe. What do you think, Alex? For a man, for an entrepreneur, the highest emotional energy we get through the woman, right? Is there anyone apart from the wife whom we are going to get married, or like is there wife is the best person for an husband?
In the research I've done, what's most important for us as human beings is to have a secure attachment.
Mhm.
And there's really only three like entities that can work as a secure attachment. This is like attachment theory. It can be God, and I've never had a close enough relationship with my higher power that that's my secure attachment. I wish I did. I wish I did. I just don't have that faith. I do these days, but I haven't in the past. The second one can be a parent, and my parents were not a very secure attachment in any way, so I didn't experience that growing up. And the third one can be a spouse or someone you're in a relationship with. And by putting in that time and energy into Katie, it's really the primary relationship you have. It's the most important relationship you have. When I created secure attachment with her, I felt that security everywhere else. I don't think there's a way you can do it. If a guy's trying to do it like, here's my relationship and I'm not really going to put energy here, but I've got this friendship where I'm going to put all the energy, it's going to create challenges in your relationship. Like, go all in, connect with that person, understand each other, know everything about each other. Don't have secrets, be transparent, be real with each other. And that energy will carry over into everything you do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love that. That's so amazing. And Alex, are you ready for like a rapid fire? I'll ask
Oh,
you
sure.
quick one.
Sure.
Awesome. What will be the one word how you define your relationship with KD?
Ecstatic.
Second. Awesome. And what will be in a pointer style if you were to tell the code for a lifelong fulfilling relationships, what will it be?
Just lean in. Like, lean in. Use a relationship as the biggest opportunity for growth that you have. And don't expect it to be perfect, because it won't be, but look at the challenges you're having in the relationships as a challenge you have in life. And so go handle those challenges and your whole life will get better.
Wonderful. And the biggest turn on for a partner beyond like physical thing, what are the main things one has to do?
Being seen and heard. Like, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but here's what I can tell you about being in experiences that I've been in the past few years. Like, if you're willing to have real conversations and someone and your partner feels seen and heard, the sexual connection will go through the roof. In most relationships, women or men are overcoming the challenges in the relationship in order to connect physically. If
Mm.
you lower those barriers in the relationship, physical connection becomes the most natural, the most exciting, the most grounding, the most life-changing thing that there is. Connected, intimate, present, aware sex where you're not performing, where you're not thinking about what you're going to do next, when you're not trying to last longer, when you're in the moment with your partner, I am fully convinced is one of the most healing things you can do in your life. Not only is it amazing, not only does it change the chemicals in your body and make you feel great, not only do you feel more connected to that person, but it heals trauma. it heals the frustration you feel. It heals the lack of connection you feel when you really get into that space where you're truly connected and intimate.
Absolutely love that. And one ritual every couple have to start from tonight itself. What is that like you want to tell?
I would say start a practice of sitting down every single day together and talking rationally and honestly about what's going on, and talk about the things that have happened in your life, and talk about what's happening for you. And as the man, make sure you create space for her to talk, because we will over talk and over communicate. And like when I say create space to talk, like slow down. What I realized in my relationship is that I'm a professional communicator and my wife isn't. My wife's actually pretty introverted. She's an amazing communicator, but like I'm really good at this. This is what I do. This is who I am, right? And so we would have conversations where it was almost always 80-20. I was talking 80% of the time. She was talking 20% of the time. I didn't really understand what was going on for her. What I've learned to do is stop talking and listen. And Akshay, like there was one time where I was like not talking, and I was like convicted to listening, and I started counting. I'm like 1, 2, 3. There's like this open space. I had asked a question. Katie didn't say anything. My instinct was like to repeat the question or say something different. And instead, I just sat there. It's like 11 or 12 seconds. And then she gave this massive answer of stuff that I've never heard from her before. So start the habit of sitting down every day. It's really hard to stay in a multi-day fight if you're sitting down every single day. It's really hard to get reactive and mean to each other if you know you have to go back to that space the next day. So sit down every day. And as the man, create that container, create the structure, open that process where you sit down. You know, we both say an intention, and I open this like space for us, and listen. You'll be shocked at what you hear, and you'll be surprised at how much more connection and how much more intimacy there is in your relationship.
Absolutely
Give
love
me
that.
1 second. My dog's crazy.
Yeah,
Sorry about that, Akshay.
no problem. And Alex, what will destroy the relationship fastest, right? What should one focus on so that they don't get destroyed?
Having unfair expectations that the person's going to fix everything. It just doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. And Alex, what are the greatest books you will recommend everyone to read in your so many years which you have read and you think it can be helpful for the people?
Um, there's a really simple book that if you're just getting started in this work, it's by this couple named Vanessa and Xander, and it was really game changing for us. It's called Sex Talks, and it's 5 conversations that you have with your spouse.
Hmm.
And Katie and I went through that, and it was very revealing. But here's what I want you to know. Like, if you're going to go through that book, there's probably going to be some stuff that comes up for you. So just know that it's an opportunity. It's not something you get angry about. It's not something you get frustrated about. Like going through that book, I actually learned about a lot about myself and how much I was repressing sexually and how much I hadn't expressed and how much Katie didn't know. And in like closing that gap in communication and connection, it really helped our relationship.
Absolutely. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex, for sharing such incredible wisdom. I truly believe you are one of the most humblest and greatest coaches I've seen who have shared so much of incredible wisdom, which is going to help so many people. And I'm sure enough, like I think many people needs this help and support and everything. And I think you have to become a relationship coach as well.
At this point, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm really happy to have this podcast with you and share some of what I've learned.
Absolutely. And yep. And Alex, how you felt overall, the questions and everything after like your sabbatical? I think this is your first podcast about like relationship, marriage, sex, somebody asking you.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. This is interesting. Yeah, yeah. Like I want to make it very clear to everybody. I don't feel like I'm an expert. I feel like I've learned a lot and I have some stuff to share, and I feel like I have a different perspective on how this really works. But I don't think that like what I'm saying is the end all beat all for 100% of people. But if you heard what I said and it resonated as truth in your body, lean in.
Absolutely. That was wonderful. And Alex, for everyone who is watching this, if they have any questions or something about like relationships or like they are facing some problems, how and where they can reach out? Can they reach out on Facebook, Instagram, or like?
Yeah, I'm on both Facebook and Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time. Instagram's easier. So if you want to message anything, I'm there. I'm available. I'm happy to help or point you in the right direction. You know, yeah. Right now, I'm just in the process of trying to share some what I've learned and help people and see what comes next. I'm sure there will be something next, but there's nothing clear yet.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Alex, once again. And everyone who is watching this, thank you so much for taking your super valuable time. Do like, share, and comment what are your three biggest takeaway, what you have learned, and do send it to your partner if you think your husband is facing a problem or like wife. Tell them to watch this podcast. Do together some homework, take notes, and do the rituals what Alex told. And it was literally a bulb on moment for me because I don't know much about like marriage and life and everything. It was like an new learning and experience, so that it's going to be like a personally masterclass for me, which I'm going to apply in my life. And I will tell Alex after like 5 years or 10 years after I get married how the life is going to be. And
I'm
I
looking forward to that.
I'll come rewatch this podcast and see how everything went after like few years, right? And yep, everyone watching this, do take massive inspired action and let's make a world a better place to live. And once again, thank you so much, Alex, and for sharing your incredible wisdom. Yep, have a great day, guys. Bye bye. See you all.
Thanks, Akshay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.